filtered for sizing or anything, just hand action. So we raise the button, get called in the big blind, standard check back, I think, on the flop. Definitely checking back the turn with no diamond. Although we do want to delayed c-bet pretty heavily, we don't want to c-bet, delayed c-bet our entire range on the turn, especially on flush turns. So without a diamond, definitely happy with a check back. But I'd say on river, we have a mandatory bluff, and we just go for the small size, and we get the fold. Ace king jack 9-6. Could bet or check the flop, think both are fine. Probably a spot that we should be going for a delayed c-bet, but on the river definitely need to go for a delayed c-bet on the river, and we end up getting the fold. Don't even need to go half pot here. I think 1/3 does the exact same job, but just gives us a better price on our bluff. King 10 9 6 5. Standard check back on the flop, standard check back on the flush turn with no blockers. And on the river, I think we have another mandatory bet. I like that I just go small here. And we do get called by a hand that should always call, even for a bigger size, I think. Ace 10 7 8 8. I think check back turn is standard. Check back flop, excuse me. On the turn, could definitely start betting here with the heart blocker. I think that's probably a bit better. And on the river, we have a pair of eights, but we do have reasonable blockers to make our opponent fold. But that's not what this video is about. Even without strong blockers here, we should just always be betting this river when we have worse than like probably like 3-4 here. Anytime we have a worse hand than 3-4 to pair on the river, we should just go for a small bet here and we'll over realize our fold equity. This time we get called by a hand that should always call. King Queen 10 8 7. I think checking back the gut shot with two backdoor flush draws is fine. On the turn, probably a spot I'm fine checking back too. On the river, we have a mandatory bet with no showdown value. Again, just this 1/3. We only need him to fold 20% of the time with this size. So he probably needs to dip into like pocket sixes, pocket sevens to start calling effectively here. King, queen, queen, 10 7, raise on the button. Pretty bad board for our hand. We check back, another flush turn. Definitely just checking back with no blockers here. And on the river, we do have pocket queens here with a pair blocker, but generally it's not going to be enough to show down, as he's still going to have a load of two pair sets and low straights in his range that might fold to a small bet. So we just go 1/3 and we get the fold. So when I was going through this, I was genuinely surprised at how often I was getting folds in this line. It's like a ratio of like 4-1 folds to calls for the small sizing. So super happy with this strategy, and I think it's extremely effective based on the way the population plays. All right, let's jump into the last side and then we'll move on to the last exploit. So to close out this exploit, I want to finish on this image of Puss in Boots and the Incredible Hulk to really drive home the power of this small river bet in position. So when we look at the Hulk, he's going to be our big bet. So he's strong, he's effective, and he gets the job done, although he does leave a lot of damage in his wake. But there's definitely a place for him in our strategy. Now, Puss in Boots, on the other hand, he's subtle, he's deceptive, he's sneaky, and he also gets the job done. What I mean when I bring up this analogy is that although the Hulk can rip someone's head off, Puss in Boots can slice their head off with his little sword, and both of these guys get the same end result, but Puss in Boots, our small river bet, achieves this result with a lot less energy expended and also with a lot less risk. So I think this is a really good way to think about our different river sizings. Also, be creative with these small river bets, so it works in many different situations in many parts of the game tree, since people underprotect their checking ranges, and I would say like 90% of nodes in 5 card, you're almost always going to have enough fold equity to realize to utilize this small river bet. Finally, exploit number 5, our last exploit for the video, is playing versus unprotected out of position check-in ranges. We're going to be focusing here on single raise pots, although I believe that this strategy can also be applied to other parts of the game tree, 3-bet pots for example, just to a slightly lesser extent. So we're going to jump straight into some mass data analysis here to find out how population plays out of position in single raise pots. So if we look here, in a cutoff versus button single raise pot situation, the out of position player is only supposed to c-bet on average like 25% of the time across all board types. The only exception to this is going to be their out of position c-bet frequency on ace high boards, where the pre-flop raiser is just going to have a very big advantage and therefore gets to c-bet at a reasonable frequency out of position. But as we can see on all other board types, the out of position player is only supposed to have a very small c-bet percentage in theory. Now, if we have a look at how population are actually playing, we can see that they are c-betting a huge amount more than they should in theory, and therefore they're leaving their check-in range out of position very capped and very unprotected. So if we assume that population are betting all their strong hands and a lot of their medium strong hands, and then checking all their weak hands and their medium hands, this leads us to find our main exploit for this node. After checking out of position and facing a stab from the in-position player, population is just massively overfolded. So how can we exploit this? Well, population is not protecting their out of position check-in ranges, therefore their check-in range is weak. Therefore, we have a lot more fold equity when it checks to us and we go for the stab. So population is folding versus a flop stab after checking out of position 55% of the time. When we stab for 50%, we are giving ourselves a 3-to-1 price on our bluffs. Therefore, we only need our stabs to work 33% of the time. So we are massively over-realizing fold equity when we go for a stab in this node. So to finish off the video, I just want to go over some quick hand examples. I've basically just filtered for any time we stabbed flop in a single raise pot heads up where we don't have a premium hand on the flop. So we make I think this is an okay call, especially against a very aggressive looking opponent in the cutoff. We go heads up to flop and we see King Jack 5. So I think a lot of people just auto check most of their Jack 5 here. But if we know that out of position players in general are not going to be protecting their check-in range and they're going to be overfolding to the in-position stabs, then I think hands like this actually become very profitable. Because yes, we have some showdown value in a check back line, but it's very hard to realize.
Загружается быстро, но и там 1,5 часа переводить, сказал будет. Поэтому пишу второй видос. Но я частично-то понимаю, о чем он говорит, ну как бы из-за профессиональных терминов.
I might even just bet all of my Jack 5 combos against population here, unless we have some form of backup that we really want to realize. So we go for a stab, he calls. Definitely want to bet this turn with Jack 5. Don't need to go big. Half pot is probably what we would go with King Jack. I think this gets a lot of respect, and we do get the fold. This one, we call on the button with Ace, King, Queen, 10, 7, double suited. Probably a hand that we should be 3-betting pre-flop. Not sure why we didn't. Checks to us. I think when we have the nut flush blocker, this just makes a perfect stab. Probably okay in theory, but in practice it's going to work even better. We call on the button, King, King, 10, 9, 5. Cutoff goes for the check. This is kind of similar to the Jack 5 hand in that we can check back and realise by the river at a reasonable frequency. But if we think about our pot share in a check back line here, out of 11.5 big blinds, maybe it's like 4 big blinds or something like that. But in a stab line, I think we actually realise more like 6 or 7 big blinds by betting this hand. Because not only can we fold them out of equity on the flop, we also have really good future blockers. We can continue barreling on a club, on a 10, any of these sorts of hands to get him to fold better hands by the river. This time it looks like he is protecting his checking range out of position. It's fine. King, king, 10, 6, deuce. Little loose on the button, probably a VPIP game, and it looks like a fish that's opening, so it can't be too bad. He goes for the check out of position. And other hand, kind of similar to the last one. Yes, we have some showdown value when this checks down, but I think our pot share here is just going to be much, much higher when we go for a stab. King, Jack, Jack, 8-3, we go for a limp.
Что мы
And we go
успеем?
an ISO
Я не
from
хочу
the small
опоздать на
blind.
массаж.
Pretty loose. This is definitely going to be a VPIP game. It checks to us on the button. I think we just stab this board at a super high frequency. When this guy isolates in the small blind, he's going to be very, very high card heavy. And so anytime I have any sort of blockers here, I just know I can over-realize my fold equity by going for a stab. So just half pot seems fine, and we get the fold. Okay, last one we'll do here. Ace, Jack, 9, 7, 7. We flop the straight draw blockers. Backdoor flush draw. We don't have a heart, so it's debatable whether the solver will stab this in theory. But again, if we know that people are just really under protecting their out of position checking range, that we just want to stab pretty much all of our combos that are blocking the straight like this with 7-7 or 8-8 would be my approach to this. We get a call. I think we just have a mandatory barrel here with the nut blockers. We go for a pot, and he goes for the fold. So yeah, a few interesting hands there. I just want you guys to experiment a bit with this, because I think you'll really be surprised with how much fold equity you actually have, because population is under protecting their checking range out of position so often. So that's all I have for this video, guys. I look forward to seeing you in the next one.